Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Welcome back. Game number 4 here between Losira and MMA. Here is Losira, the blue Zerg player here in the right position, and in the left side of the map, we do have MMA as the red Terran player. Wow. So yes, Terran versus Zerg, game number 4 between Losira and MMA. We'll be quite excited to see how this plays out. MMA is now up 2-1 against Losira. He ended up losing game number 1, but managed to win a game 2 and 3 against Losira. And we can see Losira here is going to want to try to hopefully get a repeat performance of game number 1, bringing him back into the series. Definitely in need of it right now, being down 2-1. It looks like we will be seeing MMA, of course, going for the wall off. Pretty much the bane of the first game, and what caused him to lose it was the simple fact that he did not have a complete wall off, and Zerglings were able to pretty much just ruin his day. I'm sure MMA was kicking himself for that very reason. Back over here, we can see Losira scouting out this position, seeing the fact that there is no command center right here. Will be moving his Overlord. Looks like it is rallied up to go right behind the expansion of what will be eventually MMA's natural expansion. Now, will be, of course, completing that full wall off again in that first game. Because of a lack of wall off, he pretty much lost the game for that very reason. So does not want that to happen yet again. And it looks like Losira may very well be going for that quick expo. Probably going to be seeing a 15 expansion. Did I call it an expo? Probably going to be seeing a 15 expansion, followed by an extractor and a spawning pool. That is basically his preferred opening against Terran. That's what we've seen him do. I believe so far every game in the series has gone for that pretty much exact build, and for one very good reason. It works a lot of the time. Now, although he's lost the last 2 games, I wouldn't say it was particularly because of the opening build that he lost, but just due to some certain engagements. One thing that Losira has been doing a lot of in this series is he's been playing just incredibly aggressively. Early game, lots of speedlings, banelings thrown into the mix as well, really trying to break MMA early on. And unfortunately for him, while it did work that first game, it really hasn't worked in any of these subsequent games. Now taking a look over here for MMA, no gas yet, so we will be seeing an expansion. Looks like One Racks Expand is the name of the game here for MMA. Now, being that's the case, probably want to see him come out with these Marines and be a little bit aggressive, kind of be very active with these early game Marines. He does not want Losira to scout out what's going on. He needs to deny that as much as possible. Clearly, he does have this depot right here, so that's going to prevent any workers or any Zerglings from getting up into his base, but killing off any of these early game Zerglings or drones, certainly a good idea. We can see right now the Marine's going to be tailing back right now to actually try to pick off the drone, and the drone is a goner. Really stands no chance at this point. Will try to make it up into the main, but unfortunately MMA, of course, does have that fully walled off, so not an option, and see you later, drone. 1 kill already going to MMA. Back over here, MMA is in the main base right now of Losira. Spawning pool just hatching. We'll be able to get that metabolic boost very, very shortly. As you can see, probably going to start pulling guys off the gas as well. And there we go, guys off the gas. Exactly 100 Vespian, and then starts that metabolic boost. We'll be seeing 2 Zerglings initially and not 4. And that's funny because I do see a lot of Zerg players go with 4 early game, but Losira is happy with just the 2. Oh, and there we go, 2 more in fact coming out. So he will be going with those 4. That will provide him with some pretty solid map control early on. Losira coming down with the bunker at the bottom of his ramp here, and this is going to allow him to defend himself early on with this expansion, because besides that, he would really have a hard time gathering from this expansion once it does get up and running. Can see a factory going down right now. We do have 2 refineries up for MMA. Back over here for Losira, we can see Zerglings heading across the map. 1 at the tower, 2 more joining up their buddies, and there's that metabolic boost coming through. And at this point, looks like Losira is in fact just going to be droning up. We do see another queen coming out as well, so we'll be sticking with 3 queens early game. There are these Zerglings pulling forward. Needs to pull back though. Those Marines will be a little bit too much for them to handle, especially before they get metabolic boost. Very hard for the Zerglings to actually circumvent this bunker and pull in to do anything really respectively in terms of damage. We do see 2 factories coming out right now, so we'll be seeing some sort of mech opening here from MMA, be it possibly starting out with Hellions and then maybe moving into Tank Thor and with some Hellions in the mix as well. That is a possibility, but given the fact that there are 2 Thors, I will expect just heavy mech play here. And actually, wow, look at this, MMA destroying off this this depot that was initially placed here, allowing him to actually complete that wall off with an additional depot himself, so he will of course have control over lifting and lowering those. Can see right now, Overlord Scout heading on in for Losira. MMA is currently unaware of that. So Losira is just going to chill back in the corner and use that sacrificial overlord later down the road to be able to spot out exactly what the production is of MMA. Now, has he scouted those? Yes, he has. So he's seen the 2 factories. Also sees that tech lab going down, and it looks like Infernal Pre-Nutters will be what MMA decides to start this game out with. And instead of what we've been typically seeing from Losira, which has been just responding with early game aggression to MMA's quick expansions, he appears to be just going for some macro himself. He's going to be getting up this 3rd expansion right over here once he does take down those rocks, opting to not go for the high yield one over here simply because a little bit more difficult for him to defend and much more easier for MMA to actually get in on there and harass. So again, once these rocks are down, I will, of course, expect Losira to push on over there. We do have this Roach Warren as well as the Baneland Nest coming on through. Still no layer whatsoever here from Losira, so just going to be sticking with that general hatchery tech for the early stages of the game. And here we go, going to be seeing some very strong Infernal Pre-Nutter Hellions. Now, we do have some additional barracks being placed, so we'll from this probably be seeing, I'm guessing, maybe the Marine tank build. I almost initially, as I mentioned prior, expected that mech-heavy play, but it looks like he was just going for that. In fact, just for these Infernal Pre-Nutter Hellions, he is hoping to do a ton of damage right here, and I would definitely say he's got that opportunity right now. This is a lot of Hellions. Infernal Pre-Nutter has finished, so he's got a tremendous opportunity to do some damage here. Also pushing out with a couple Marines, trying to basically deny any scouting, but there we go. Going to be dropping these Zerglings, and instead actually just heading straight to the main base. He wants to try to get some sort of a surprise, but it looks like at this point, Losira is aware of what's going on. Some nice creep spread there as well. Tons of roaches, some very nice building placement as well, making it very hard for those Hellions to actually push on into the expo. Trying to engage right now, going to be engaging those roaches, and that's pretty much the last thing they actually want to do. Banelings taking out a ton of Marines there. Very nice play, and the acid from those roaches mopping up the rest of those Marines. That, of course, does force these Hellions to pull on back because that is not something that they want to engage. Roaches, very, very difficult for both Marines and Hellions to actually do anything to. Looks like we have a couple of Hellions still making their way across the map. We'll be trying to pick off any straggler Zerglings. Here's some 2 free kills for them. There's the one. That Zergling does manage to sneak away right there. Roaches also trying to drop this high yield. So there's the 3rd up for Losira, and he now once he gets that nice and saturated, he will be in a good position. Does still want to be wary though of these Hellions. The Hellions, if they get into that resource line, will be much of a cause for concern, but the Roaches do want to be active and trying to shoot them back. But there we go, Roaches, while out engaged in the middle, we're away from that main defending, and unfortunately for MMA, that Baneling line was actually enough to shoo back his Hellions. He really didn't want to walk into that. So here is double reactor on these barracks right now, and that's going to allow for some strong Marine production. We also have Thors coming out here as well, double Thor in fact. How many tanks is he sitting on? Looks like he is just with the 1 tank, going to be going double Thor, and another expansion coming out for MMA as well. I'm not sure if he scouted this. He may have scanned it. No, he has not scanned it yet. We'll be checking the possibility of an expo over here, but won't be able to work really through those rocks with those Hellions. They're just not good at all, and again, engaging those Roaches. They again do want to pull back because that is not something you want to do as a Terran player. Engaging Roaches with Hellions, pretty much one of the worst ideas that there is. We can see level 1 upgrade for the melee attack coming out right now for Losira. Does he have any of those range upgrades? I'm actually not sure. Looks like he does not in fact have range upgrades, so just now starting the upgrades. Also level 1 just starting over here for MMA as well for the infantry units. Thor moving on down to the back of the mineral patch over here, simply because that's his only way of movement. Looks like they were pathing instead around that factory instead of coming straight from this direction, due to pretty much those stupid attachments, unfortunately, making that pathing a little more difficult. So I'm sure MMA is kicking himself about that, because having to have those units walk all the way around the mineral patch, oh, well, that's a tad bit frustrating. I have to say, Hellion's roasting a Zergling scout that did move out there for Losira, and looks like MMA is still being very, very active. One thing I could definitely say about MMA is he's just consistently all over the map, be it with dropships, with Hellions, with just solo Marines just running around all over the place. MMA has always got a clear idea of what's going on, and that's something that is a sign of a very strong player, someone who's very active and always has vision on their opponent. Obviously, a really, really good thing. Losira doing what he can to try to maintain control of the Xel'Naga. Hellions will take care of that one Zergling, though, and get that back for MMA. Back over here inside of MMA's base, we do see a starport coming on out. Also, combat shield, the level 1 upgrade just about finished, and level 1 for his mech units, which of course will help those Thors and siege tanks as well as those Hellions. Moving across into the high yield, MMA will be taking advantage of those high yield resources. However, at the same time, we do have Losira here at the high yield, getting that expansion up. It's about 50% of the way finished right now. Centrifugal hooks just finished right now for the Banelings here of Losira, sitting with a few roaches in the mix and a bunch of Zerglings here as well. In terms of transition, looks like roaches will be a focus of his. He did just finish that roach speed, and he does also have that spire coming up, so getting ready to transition to the higher tech. There's that Overseer Scout though, moving on through. We'll be spotting that Thor pretty simply. However, he is armored, so the Thor is not going to really do too well against that. A contamination going down right there on that factory, stopping the production of those siege tanks. All right, back over here for Losira. Big army sitting right here in the middle. Lots of Banelings in the mix with those Speedlings as well. Where'd those roaches go? There we go. Roaches at the Zelnaga to deal with any Hellions that may try to move in there and steal it from Zerglings. And here we go. Some free kills here. Nope. Pulling back just in time. Nice responsiveness there by MMA. Back over here, Overlords pulling on out. Actually, a little surprised that the Overlords do not have speed yet, and neither does it look like they're coming either. So not a focus here of Losira, not really that concerned with getting that Overlord speed, focusing more on his upgrades and his army as well. Pulling out with a small task force at the same time, moving in from this direction over here. Wants to try to sandwich and engage the army here of MMA. Needs to be careful though, because there's a nice tank spread. Banelings rolling in, doing a lot of damage though. Banelings going straight for that tank line, but with some very nice marine spread and microing them back, was able to deal with those, but not without his losses, taking heavy losses. Roaches will continue this push. We have a few more Banelings sitting over there as well. Hopefully those move forward to engage. MMA though, with some consistent reinforcement. Gotta love that macro. He has just kept up this production, and he's able to actually get this line up right now, unbelievably, really. His tank line is back up. He's got some Marines there as well. One turret to defend against the possibility of mutas, and a couple more Marines sitting in this position. So really, thought that MMA may have been broken there by that attack, but Losira unfortunately did not have enough to break it, and again, because of the strong macro here of MMA, he was able to reinforce very quickly. Reinforcements just streaming right out of his base. Is getting a couple tech labs here, possibly to transition into a couple of Marauders just to deal with the roaches that are in play here from Losira. Again, Losira does have this third and fourth base up, finally saturating this high yield expansion. Also at the same time, MMA is sitting at the high yield, pretty comfortable on just these 3 bases at the moment. Really doesn't want to overextend himself and put him in a bad position. And again, what did I tell you? MMA very active with those Marines and Hellions and just being all over the map. That Marine just getting that one Overlord kill right there, and going to be stimming up and taking out this Overlord here as well. Hopefully, I think that Overlord should be able to get away. Back over here, another mix of Speedlings, Roaches, and Banelings for Losira. Losira also pulling over in this direction, so doing what he can to split up his army and trying to engage in multiple positions, taking some big losses actually though. That one tank managed to shell on a big cluster of units that Losira did have. Losira losing that other Overlord. Yes, he did lose it over here, but here comes a convergence from either side. Speedlings rolling to first, Banelings behind them, and then Roaches right behind them as well. We do have some tanks in the back though. This consistent spread from MMA, but is it enough? There are so many units from Losira. He does have one tank going to be moving that right up onto the high ground. Roaches trying to do what they can, but finally mopped up by the few remaining units of MMA. So once more, Losira trying to break MMA, but just not having enough. He did manage to get up in this high yield and do a bit of damage, and actually looks like he may take out this Orbital Commander. We're going to get a repair down in time. No, we do not, unfortunately. MMA not doing it. He is dropping though, and taking out the high yield as well. So MMA returning fire there, dropping the high yield. Very nice. Still has a medevac up. Gonna want to drop those guys very quickly though. Try to take care of those mutas, and yes, he is able to. And those Marines will shoo off the mutas, start going to town there on that queen, and at the same time, MMA is pushing out across the map. Very nice return fire. Although he missed the repair, it was because he was paying attention to the drop, which allowed him to take out the high yield here of Losira, and that is big, and I'm really happy for him that he did that, because taking out that high yield was exactly what he needed, given the fact that he lost his base. We have a couple Marines chilling out up here. Hopefully those do move forward to engage, and there we go. Going to start working on the extractor. At the same time, lots of Marines just tearing through these units. We just saw 2 queens get taken out. We'll be stimming up and scanning down on these creep tumors, dropping those, forced to lift off. Unfortunately, losing that medevac to those mutas there. We are seeing some, again, very nice counter aggression from MMA. He did lose a lot of his units. He did have that siege line broke pretty hard by Losira. Looks like Losira being pretty much done over here in terms of mining. Will be moving up into his 4th as well. Needs to really make sure that he is able to defend this expansion. Definitely does not want to lose this. Needs to get up and running. Probably going to be losing this SCV. Yes, that will get hit from that splash damage, it looks like, from those mutas. Gets dropped down, but the Marines pulling forward to engage, and another RCV is just going to pick up production here. A couple of Marines will be defending this expansion as well, so it looks like MMA at this point is able to get up these expansions. Now that we have a quick moment, at least, for some breathing room, let's take a look at those units lost tab. Looks like Losira is in the worst position of the two. Still need these Marines to try to defend against the harassment here of these mutas. Make sure that this gets up, and there we go. It is now up and ready to rock right now. We'll be able to start using those SCVs to mine, although he is pretty close to mined out right now. You can see very low in terms of resource count on all those mineral patches, but probably that one over there. We'll be seeing some more dropping over here from MMA. MMA just absolutely all over the place in terms of drops. We did have a drop go down over here, causing a little bit of harassment. Finally, though, Losira is able to mop that up with the units that he has sitting over there. Dropping down, going to be taking out this Overlord as well. Any of these small victories certainly are great. MMA sitting with a very strong force here in the center of the map. Both players pretty much tied up, but in terms of the harassment that's been going down, we have definitely been seeing a lot more harassment here from MMA with these dropships than we have been seeing from his opponent here, Losira. So very nice, definitely something I like to see. MMA all over the place with this and still continuing up this push, trying to move again into this high yield and do what he can to take it out, splitting up his Marines here as well, trying to spot out a little bit. He is taking out this expansion. It looks like Losira's going to lose it to that Marine attack. So right now, Losira just having this high yield and this expansion over here for mining, very low over here as well. He is rallying up all of his forces to try to get ready to engage. Big scan going down from MMA, big in the sense that it allowed him to see everything that Losira had, so he is fully aware of what his opponent has going on. We'll be spreading out these Marines, but it looks like at this point, Losira will just be circumventing that large tank force in the middle. This will force MMA to retreat right now. Speedling's trying to move into the high yield, forcing MMA to lift that off right now. Roaches trying to move forward, trying to catch these tanks on siege. They catch a few of them. A couple of them are going to stay on siege, though, to deal with those roaches. Big baneling bust, though, taking out a lot of units. However, we do still have a ton of Marines right here for MMA, and that is a problem because there are not a lot of roaches left here for Losira. Now, in losing all of those tanks, that definitely put MMA in a little bit of a bind because those speedlings and banelings will be much more difficult to deal with just those Marines. Obviously, with some proper micro, you can do a bit of damage, but still, is it going to be enough? That is, in fact, the question. We will be seeing another drop come down from MMA. He is going back into the main with these Marines. We'll be sniping down some Overlords and probably trying to take out some tech as well. If he can take out that Spire, that will put him in a really, really good position. Another drop taking place over here as well. And once more, MMA just all over the place with these drops. And at the same time, we'll be pushing straight down the center of the map. He is really eking to take out this high yield. We'll be retreating to the safety of that line, hopefully. There we go. Needs to pull back to the safety of that tank line once those banelings try to roll forward. Needs to be very careful, though, because the Mutacloud will be taking out the tanks in the background. There we go. Marines pulling back to take out the mutas. Banelings and roaches rolling forward to take out those tanks, though. Are there enough Marine numbers? Some very nice micro here, picking them up just in time. The mutas are nowhere near right now, and their count is very low. So these Marines will be able to make it back home safely, and MMA has resumed mining at this high yield for whatever it may be worth, because there are not a lot of units. MMA sitting on a very strong Marine count right now in terms of army. Wow, look at that, 47 as opposed to the 86. MMA in a pretty dominant position. There's a drop going down at the expansion, disrupting the mining once more. Losira just having a very hard time dealing with this continuous drop action from MMA, and MMA just doing a very phenomenal job of harassing his opponent here. Big engagement coming down straight down the middle. Tons of Marines will be walking into those roaches, and big baneling hit, doing a lot of damage to those Marines, but not actually killing off all of them at the same time. Speedlings here at the high yield. Couple Speedlings here at this expansion as well. So MMA taking some losses, but he is rolling right into the expansion here and looks to be doing quite a bit of damage. We'll be seeing those drones pull down, and this is the problem, because if he loses those drones, Losira is going to be very low, and there is the GG. We saw a very macro-focused opening from both players, with MMA going 1 racks into expand and then moving into some Infernal Pre-Igniter or Hellion. And then Losira going for a quick expansion into a Roach-Warren Baneling's Nest, and then also moving into his fast third. Our first real push came from MMA around the 9-minute mark with his Marines and Hellions, and while he attempted to push into Losira's base, he wasn't actually able to do much because of the strong roach count that Losira had, pretty much negating all of those Marines and Hellions. After dealing with that Hellion Marine harass, Losira moved into his 4th, and MMA moved into his 3rd at the high yield. MMA set up shop outside of his high yield and natural, which we did see Losira tried to pin in between 2 strong pushes with Banelings, Roaches, and Speedlings. And in this engagement, MMA actually had just enough to be able to defend himself with that nice tank spread and some good micro with his Marines and Hellions as well. MMA set up his defenses a second time, which once more Losira pushed right into. We're going to see those Speedlings, Banelings, and Roaches move right on in, and again, just barely MMA was able to hold this off with some nice tank spread and some good micro as well, and once fending this off, he finally gave himself a little bit of breathing room. The remnants of that last push were able to actually knock out MMA's high yield expansion, but at the very same time, a drop from MMA was able to snipe the high yield expansion of Losira. Another drop in the main of Losira took out his spawning pool. And then throughout the rest of the game, MMA was able to keep up constant aggression on Losira with pushing through the middle with his tanks and Marines, as well as consistent droppings at his various expansions. This is actually what ended up forcing Losira to GG just because of this consistent pressure from MMA. So there you go, guys. Game number 4. We will be moving on to the game number 5 in just one moment. As always, guys, if you like the content, please do go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Keep watching and keep owning.